How fragile is our food system? So we have a cafe and we have about 60 products, all plant-based, that we distribute around Ireland. And I guess we're aware of how small changes, basil fluctuations, like we can get basil in Ireland about 8 months of the year, and we're looking at growing, we use about a quarter ton a week. And during kind of times when there's kind of storms around the Mediterranean, we can't get basil, the price fluctuates, we might struggle to get it. It's tentative, it's delicate, and I just wonder I've heard you talk about it previously, where it's gone to a much more just-in-time production model in terms of how we manage the logistics of our global food system. And I just wonder, how delicate and fragile is it? Because it's something that we take for granted. I can go down to the supermarket and not only is there food there, it's the exact, I can get chickpeas, I can get a particular variety of chickpeas.
And COVID was the first time that we saw that you heard these rumours that, well, there's only ever a week's supply in a country. Like, you know, if things go wrong in Ireland or the UK or whatever, there's we know food in a week. So people started stockpiling food and toilet rolls and whatever. And I guess it's just to open up that conversation about the global food system, and has it gone too efficient and too machine-like and not local and human enough?
Well, these are all the right questions, and we take it for granted, don't we? You know, you go to the shops, the shelves are going to be full of stuff. And I don't know about in Ireland, but just recently we've been going to the shops and all the shelves where there's meant to be tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, aubergines, courgettes, nothing, wow. Just completely empty. And that's okay, exacerbated by Brexit, you know, and the immediate trigger has been cold weather in Spain and Morocco. But what we've seen since the 1970s now is an escalating series of shocks to the global food system. This is well documented in the scientific literature, where the shocks have just been getting worse and worse and worse. And in a healthy system, we're talking about complex systems here. The soil is a complex system. Every ecosystem is, the atmosphere is, the oceans are, the human brain is, human body is, human society, everything important to us in the whole world is a complex system. And they operate according to certain rules. And a healthy system is self-regulating. It's through billions of random interactions. It has these weird self-sustaining, self-regulating properties which keep it within an equilibrium state. But if you undermine the resilience of that system, if you strip away some of the elements which make the system strong, those self-regulating features cease to function, and shocks can travel easily across the system. And even worse, once it gets to a certain point, the self-regulating features become self-amplifying features instead. They multiply the shocks and make them worse and worse. And then the system gradually starts to approach a critical threshold. And if it passes that threshold, it doesn't respond in a slow, steady way. It just collapses from one equilibrium state to another. Now, that very nearly happened with the financial system in 2008. And it was because of the disastrous strategies of the big banks. For a start, they became too big to fail was the phrase we often heard then. They were all started doing the same thing at the same time in the same way, which meant you stripped the diversity out of the system. You'd stripped the asynchronicity out of the system. In other words, they were doing it all in lockstep, which meant that anything going wrong was going to affect everyone all at the same time in the same way. They had created a sort of global standard for trading where you could just shift your currencies around. The national barriers have been taken down. So they broke down what's called the modularity of the system, which is another crucial element of resilience. They had made everything hyper efficient, which, you know, from their own individual perspective made sense, but collectively reduced the redundancy of the system, which is another of those crucial elements. They lobbied against effective regulation, and that meant that they stripped out the circuit breakers from the system, which is like the fifth element of sustainability. And then by ensuring that everyone got integrated into this global economy, they stripped away the backup systems, which is the sixth element of sustainability within a system. So you can see those six elements: diversity, asynchronicity, redundancy, modularity, circuit breakers, and backup systems, all of which are absolutely crucial for making sure that system can continue to function. If you get rid of them for what seem like entirely logical corporate reasons, everybody pursuing their own interests, then the system as a whole becomes weaker and becomes prone to collapse. Now, in 2008, governments panicked. They had like a few hours literally before the whole system went down, and they bailed it out with trillions of dollars. And they were able to do that because they could just create money out of thin air. That's what governments do. And they did this thing called quantitative easing, and these bailouts, they just produced money. They bailed out the banks with future money. But if the food system starts going down, you can't bail it out with future food. So it's a far more dangerous situation even than the very, very close shave we came to with the possibility of financial collapse in 2008.
Wow. So how delicate is it? Like, are we carrying kind of a weak stock? Like, I know, like, say with the cafe or with that, you'll typically carry, a weak stock of dried goods because, you can get a delivery next week. Like, how delicate or kind of fragile is it? Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? Like, it's obviously a very
hypothetical question.
Hypothetical.
Hopefully, well, maybe not hypothetical. Who knows?
Well, I mean, these are all crucial questions which everyone should be asking, but hardly anyone is. People say, oh, look, we got a shock caused by cold weather in Morocco and Spain. No, we got a shock caused by COVID. We got a shock caused by Ukraine. You see these individual shocks, but we don't recognize that actually there's a much deeper underlying trend. And since 2015 rather, we've seen the rate of global chronic hunger rising. And that seems to be because of the increasing shocks to the system. So how fragile is it? Well, the problem with any complex system is you don't know where the tipping point is until you've passed it. It's by the time you realize where that tipping point is, it's too late.